what comes to your mind when you hear addiction? Surely many of us believe that I must be talking about alcohol or cigarettes or substances. Well, I'm sorry to say that I am not here to talk about the addictions to alcohol or substances, but more interestingly about our day-to-day activity. Something like a coffee, mobile, or even food. We all are addicted to something or the other, but we are not aware of it. Are you? Let's find out. I have heard many say coffee is the first thing that they do in the morning, without which they cannot start their day afresh. Or even people believe that without a glass of tea makes them somewhat feel something missing in their everyday. Many people have some sort of addiction. So stick around and try to understand what exactly are addictions, what are its causes, and few tips for de-addiction. So any action that involves a compulsion to engage in a rewarding, non-substance related behavior and sometimes is called as a natural reward, despite any negative consequences to the person's physical, mental, social or financial well-being, is what we consider as addiction. So if you consider it closely, there are two types of addiction. One is the physical addiction, where you are addicted to opioids, alcohol, tobacco, and prescription drugs. Or behavioral addiction, wherein you are addicted to shopping, exercise, work, food, and others. Impulse control is also a kind of addiction, but not like any other addiction. In impulse control, in which more impulses cannot be restricted, which could be considered a type of addiction, such as kleptomania, where you're compulsively getting on to rob or steal something, or pyromania, where there is a tendency to set things on fire. And this impulse control disorder can especially be susceptible to compulsive behavior that could lead to severe addiction. Mental health issues or mental disorders can increase the risk for both a substance use disorder and a behavioral addiction. Now, how do you notice or try to understand that you have an addiction? So, addiction manifests itself differently in each person, and the signs of addiction vary based on what the person is addicted to. We'll be talking about behavioral addiction. Behavioral addiction does not exhibit the same physical symptoms that accompanies physical addiction, but there are few clearly distinguishable signs, such as a significant amount of time is spent on the use or engaging in that behavior, inability to quit using or engaging in the behavior, inability to fulfill obligations at school, work or home, relationship and social problems, increased tolerance, withdrawal symptoms upon quitting, previously enjoyed hobbies have been abandoned. Some of the behavior and emotional changes associated with the addiction includes unrealistic or poor assessment of pros and cons of a situation associated with the using of the substance or the behavior. Blaming others and people of this problem increases the level of their anxiety, depression, sadness. Increased sensitivity and more severe reactions to stress. Trouble identifying feeling. Trouble telling the difference between the feeling and the physical sensations of one's emotion. If you find this overwhelming, then you can follow the 3 C's principle. And these 3 C's you and people around you should be aware of when identifying potential addiction. First C is craving, followed by compulsive use and continued use despite the consequences, lack of control over frequencies and the amount of use. So what has gone wrong? What does the brain does, or how exactly the changes have happened? A habit becomes an addiction when you start to experience problem in your mental or your physical health and daily functioning. The basal ganglia of your brain, which plays an important role in positive forms of motivation, including the pleasurable elements or effects of the health activities like eating and socializing, are also involved in formation of habits and routines. These areas form a key node of what is sometimes called as the brain's reward circuit. Drugs or activities overactivate the circuit, producing the euphoria of the drug high. But these with repeated exposure, adapts to the presence of a drug, diminishes its sensitivity, and making it hard to feel pleasure from anything besides that activity or drug. The amygdala, also one of the part of your brain, plays an important role in stressful feeling like anxiety, irritability, and unease, which is characterized by withdrawal of the euphoric phase, ends and thus motivates the person to seek that activity again. This circuit becomes increasingly sensitive with increased activity or the drug use. Over a time, a person with substance use disorder or behavioral disorder uses the drug or does the activity to get temporary relief from this discomfort rather than to get high, thus changing the natural balance of the brain. There are sufficient evidence that suggests that brain does recover from an addiction, but needs resilience of at least a minimum of 14 weeks to 34 weeks based on the addiction methods. Whatever be your source of addiction, a reductionist method is always helpful in recovery. Take an example of coffee. We all know that coffee is caffeine, the content inside the coffee is a very addictive source. So how can you cut down this strong addictive? First thing is to cut back gradually. If your total consumption of coffee is 6 glasses per day, have a goal to cut it down to 2 glasses per day, or start by reducing 1 glass per week. Second is set a goal. If you want to reach 2 glasses of coffee, make a goal of at least end of the month you should be reaching to your targets. 3 is readjust with non-coffee beverages. So instead of going for coffee, you can choose tea or you can choose something else which keeps you moving. And fourth is replacing the caffeine concentrates or concentration of the coffee. So make it more diluted, make it more easier for you to digest. So keeping your coffee aside and thinking about all the other behavioral addictions, you can try breaking the bad habits early during the progression by switching the activity and keeping yourself engaged with other alternative activities. Second is to identify your triggers. Third, to take small steps to set a pattern. Stay away from temptations. Replace old habits with new ones. Change your schedule. Develop coping skills. Prepare your environment. Stay committed. Celebrate your accomplishment. If these are very much severe for you to control, then join a rehabilitation program. It is possible to return to a healthy life with the help of the appropriate behavioral therapies. Medications, assisted treatments, exercise, and a sense of community are all a part of the rehabilitation program. So don't rush to the process. Take your time, keep your pace, keep faith in the quest for your freedom. So see you around with more such mind facts. Leave a comment, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with all of your friends. Thank you for sticking around. Till next time.